Good morning, everyone. It's the early bird crowd. Welcome. And give yourselves a big, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's day 3 of SphinxCon 2014. We have a full day ahead of us, half day, and we want to remind you, of course, that the Sphinx Finals competition is this afternoon at 2 o'clock. If you have the opportunity to attend, it is worth the trip. Some really talented young people will be competing this afternoon. We hope to see you there. We also want to remind you that you have comment cards in your packets, and we really would love for you to fill those out. It will help Sphinx shape next year's SphinxCon, and that's really useful information for them to have. So let's start with our first speaker. He is regarded as one of the world's leading scholars on music and culture in the Guinea Coast region of West Africa. At the University of Michigan, he established the Arts Consortium, a group of 15 administrators who lead the university's arts initiatives. He questions whether there is true appreciation for the importance of the arts in the lives of children and young people. He currently serves as the Senior Vice Provost of Academic Affairs at the University of Michigan. Please welcome Lester Monts.
Good morning, good morning. It is wonderful to be here with you. Well, we're to talk about the arts in education this morning. And the topic of my talk is the compelling need for arts at the core of American education. The reason I landed on this title is because of some work that I have done over the years, the past 15 years with the College Board. Now, most of you are familiar with the College Board, whether you know it or not. Your kids probably took the SAT, or they participated in advanced placement courses. Well, the College Board is known for much more than that. They offer a whole series of programs and services to colleges and universities. And it is the one organization, educational organization, that really does bridge secondary schools or K through 12 schools with colleges and universities. Right? So I have served on various bodies of the College Board with the Academic Assembly Council, where I served as chair, and then went on to serve as chair of the Board of Trustees. And during that time, I launched, along with the president of the College Board, Gaston Caperton, who was the former governor of West Virginia, the National Task Force on the Arts in Education. And this task force was put together because we thought that the College Board, with all of its influence in the United States, that we had not really crossed that bridge to really embrace the arts. Now, we do have advanced placement courses in music theory and art history, but to really enhance and embrace the arts, we hadn't crossed that bridge. So we took a proposal from the Academic Assembly Council to the Board of Trustees, and you see the approval here. I don't want to read these because you know the time is short, but the trustees unanimously endorsed this task force. And so we spent 3 years engaging educational and arts associations and organizations around the country. We had about 35 members on that task force, and we had a very small steering committee that actually did the work, all right? And you can see from these organizations that we were pretty widespread in terms of the organizations that we chose to affiliate ourselves with. So let me just pick out just a few issues that we were very concerned about at the College Board, all right? One had to do with the recalculation of grade point averages. And I must say, at the University of Michigan, we recalculate grade point averages. And in that process, you go in and you take out all of the arts courses and you recalculate that student's grade point average. You can imagine how upset we were about that, because many students really show their skills, show their talents through the work they do in the arts. So we're very concerned about that. Another thing that we've noticed in our research was that art courses are not necessarily a requirement for graduation from high school or for admission to colleges and universities. We were appalled by that. The third thing was that we know as we move towards various kinds of budget cuts and budget austerity, that when cuts are made, the arts are first to go. Okay, ergo, the Lansing Public Schools, where they made a great adjustment in terms of the way they teach and offer arts to their students. And then the last thing, and there are many more, but these are the four that I want to bring to your attention. We had, in many cases, non-arts trained people teaching arts courses. And so the pedagogies and the skills that we want to impart to students were in many cases not there. We know that there are great benefits of the arts, and as I have watched the various presentations on SphinxCon, I see that others realize that there's a great correlation between participation in the arts and the development of cognitive skills. And a lot of research has been devoted to just that topic. We also see studies that show this correlation between the access to the arts courses and increased attendance among students who are on the verge of dropping out of high school. Right? Many schools we found were sending students to a study hall where they would do nothing. And we thought, why not plug an art course in there? And some of the students that we found who had worked through our studio art AP course and so forth were very, very talented students. But those students' talents and skills would not have been tapped had we not pushed this effort. So quickly, let me get to some of the recommendations that we offered to the College Board. And let me just point out that the College Board has more than 6,000 member institutions that span colleges and universities, high schools, school districts, nationally and internationally. So many of the things we do at the College Board will infuse into that vast membership. So the first and foremost thing that we did was to place arts at the core of education. We often talk about a liberal arts education, but when you look at the curricula of many colleges and universities, you see that the arts have been left out or marginalized. Right? So the arts have to be at the core of our educational programs. Right? The Association of American Colleges and Universities has done just wonderful work in this area. We also want to integrate arts across the curriculum. And so the arts must be a part of education in and of themselves and as a way of relating to other subject areas. That is to say, we understand the aesthetic enjoyment that goes along with the arts, but we also know that the arts tell us a lot about culture. They tell us a lot about history. They tell us a lot about people's way of life. All right? And so let's delve into it in such a way that we glean that benefit from the arts presence in our schools. And you see these quotes here, and I'll use these quotes on several slides. These are quotes that came from students who are actually participating in arts program at schools around the country. Encourage student creativity. All right? I was just absolutely amazed. You can see from this gray beard that it's been a long time since I've been in high school. All right? But the fact is that these students are doing magnificent work. With the College Board, we found at our regional and national conferences that we have these big blank spaces in our program booklet. We say, why not provide that space for students who are in our studio arts programs? And so here's a student from Texas who provided this drawing. Right? And you can see the quote from the students that this is very meaningful to them. Here's another piece by a student in our Art Studio AP course. Again, here from California. Right? Promoting the arts for underserved students. If you're really appalled by the general state of the arts in American education K through 12, you would be even more appalled by the arts situation in many of our urban and rural schools. They're almost non-existent. Right? or, as I said before, very marginalized. Right? And I compare it to my high school experience, where I went to segregated schools in Little Rock, Arkansas in the 1950s and early 60s. In that high school, all black, I took private conducting lessons with my band director. I had private trumpet lessons. I also took courses in music history and a wonderful course called Fine Arts Survey. You know, and this is in 1962, 63. We can do better than that by promoting the arts in these schools, where the arts would serve as inspiration for students who want to move into a career in the arts or want to move into a college experience majoring in the arts. So let's give students an outlet for creativity and expression in the classroom where it can be educational. Building partnerships. The College Board, again, is not an arts organization per se, but it has major influence on education in the United States and abroad. On our task force, we had Dick Deasy, who was the past director of the arts education. And he said the College Board is perhaps the entity that could provide a leadership role to modifying the practices of colleges and universities. And that is to say, how do we move colleges and universities to the point that they integrate the arts into curricula across their various educational programs? Establishing a global perspective was another area we reached into. And let me just say that we know that we're experiencing these changing demographics that compel us to look at what various groups are bringing into our society. And as we embrace all that they bring, we must embrace the arts that they bring. As a nation, we constantly seek ways to become partners and competitors in a global economy. These past 10 years at the University of Michigan, our president has reached out to various parts of the world: China, Africa, India, Brazil. And each time she has done that, we have tried to couple some arts initiative with that. And so I encourage all colleges and universities that are involved in these global experiences for their students to make sure that they include the arts in those initiatives. Technology. I was at a conference just recently on MOOCing the liberal arts. Well, we can do a great deal with these massive open online courses. How can we build and infuse the arts into these various kinds of open online courses that go out over the internet to all sectors of the planet? All right? Global arts can be infused into existing courses. You know, as an ethnomusicologist who had a background in orchestral trumpet performance, I think I see both sides of this issue, right? And I will challenge all of us not to relegate ourselves to just studying music, the arts, from 5 or so European countries over a 300-year period. The rest of the world is out there. I often tell students, you take a look at the symphony orchestra, all right? The xylophones and marimbas, they're not European. They're either African or Indonesian. The snare drum, the cymbals, the bass drum, those aren't European instruments. They come from the Middle East. We could go on and on with this. Double reeds are not common to Europe. They're from the Middle East. You know, we need to embrace all of that. 15 minutes goes by very fast. Professional artists. We have to take advantage of the artists in our midst. You know, we have Western, non-Western, popular music, popular art professionals in our midst, yet we're not taking advantage of them. Now, the school districts often say, well, they're not certified as teachers, but we can couple them with teachers in the schools to provide that kind of experience to our students. And as we go back to that other recommendation having to do with global arts, here's where we can pull these professionals into our classrooms to provide this opportunity to our students. Now, this last slide, you won't be able to read this, but it is a letter from Arnie Duncan. And this is to emphasize the importance of engaging our policymakers. The College Board has an office in Washington, D.C., and we're constantly lobbying federal agencies in terms of education in general. But here, Arnie Duncan is making a commitment to arts in education. And we're following up on this in a very meaningful way. So, in a nutshell, education is important to this country. It is very, very important. And the way we are moving forward at the College Board, the task force is over with, but we have what we call the Arts Academic Advisory Committee. And that committee is a freestanding, ongoing committee that allows us to continue to lobby the College Board and its trustees to infuse and enhance our arts programs to all of our member institutions and beyond. And so let's continue to move forward with arts in education. Thank you.
So as an organization, you've made the leap. You've decided, yes, we want to provide support and resources to diverse artists and communities. But how do you do that in the most effective way? Our next speaker is the Director of National Programs at the National Performance Network, a group of diverse cultural organizers working to create meaningful partnerships and to provide leadership that enables the practice and public experience of the contemporary arts in the United States. Please welcome a SphinxCon founding partner, Stanlyn Brevé.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, SphinxCon, for having me, and thank you all, although I can't see you, for waking up on this Sunday morning. Today I'm here to share the story of how my organization, the National Performance Network, or NPN, has for the past 3 decades intentionally structured the organization from top to bottom so that diversity in every sense of the word is reflected in the leadership, the makeup of its member organizations, and the artists supported. I would like to share a story as a case study of how simply working with intention can really make change over time. So the National Performance Network was created in 1985 to combat artistic isolation by connecting diverse artists from all corners of the U.S. with arts organizations and communities from D.C. to Alaska. The mechanism was a network of 17 performing arts presenters called NPN Partners, who supported artists creating and touring contemporary work that challenged the status quo and advocated for social justice. The network developed as a response to the collapse of the NEA after the culture wars, when resources shifted away from individual artists. So NPN provided the structure of the network, subsidies to enable touring, and convenings that allowed for the network partners to come together to share and to learn. Since its inception, NPN has grown to 71 partners, including a visual artist network, and expanded its work internationally and locally. So here we are today, 29 years later, and over those past 29 years, the landscape has shifted greatly. Technological, demographic, economic, and environmental changes. And with that, public investment has shifted too. We are both more connected thanks to technology and travel, but also more divided, which is why 29 years later, combating artistic isolation is still a priority of NPN, whether it be isolation due to where you live, your skin color, your body, your sexual preference, or economic status. We as a cultural field are making progress, but there's still a big disconnect when the decision makers and beneficiaries of artistic resources are not as diverse as we are as a nation. Complicating the imbalance is that there's a hierarchy of power within the arts, of which artists are at the bottom, and even more so artists working in communities that have been historically underinvested in. To be an artist nowadays means that you probably have to piece together a day job, gigs, residencies, and grants to survive. Nowadays, the term diversity is thrown around so much that sometimes it's hard to really know what the term means unless you look at the context of where it's coming from. Especially in the arts, so many use the term to ask, how do I get people of color or young folks into my audiences? Although that is valid, we need to be asking, why don't the decision makers and beneficiaries of artistic resources reflect the diversity of us as a country? We need to expand the rhetoric to be truly inclusive and to work towards systemic change. So when you come to an NPN meeting, you'll see a truly diverse body of people. Artists, presenters, curators, dancers, performance artists, theater makers, ceramicists, painters, artists, administrators, just beginning their careers, veterans who have paved the way. All genders, sexualities, skin colors, geographies, ethnicities, physical abilities, religions, beliefs, and even food allergies. Now, this kind of diversity is expected. Why it is expected is because the diversity reflected at our conference is a direct result of the organization deciding to prioritize diversity decades ago. So the diversity of the network is now as central a focus as the art. And why? It's because art is not magically made. Art is made by artists. Artists are human beings, and human beings are diverse. So in order to build a diverse community, NPN has to approach it with intentionality. Diversity allows us to celebrate our differences while learning from and challenging each other towards progress. Our similarity is that we are all invested in the advancement of artists and see access to cultural experiences as a basic human right. So how do we know who is not at the table unless we first know who is there? You can't look at a person and know them. It takes time, or at least a long, long night at the bar, to really get to know a person. Not just their race, ethnicity, sexual preference, and politics, but their history, their struggles, their ancestors' struggles, their life experiences, what makes them them. There's much debate in the art world about how we measure, collect, and analyze data. You heard from Clayton yesterday. Demographics, qualitative versus quantitative, intrinsic value, stories of transformation, et cetera, et cetera. Personally, every time I fill out a demographics survey, I have an identity crisis, especially when limited to checking just one box. Which side of my family do I choose? And if I choose one, do I, as a person, adequately do justice to the whole demographic of that box? My first inclination is to rebel against the checkbox. We fight to break out of the box, no? But like creating a great work of art, you can't break the rules unless you first know how to use them. And so I reluctantly admit that yes, those boxes do have some value. They begin to tell a story. So how do we do it? It's pretty simple. NPN approaches diversity by embedding it in every aspect of the organization. Over the years, we've learned that in order to promote access and inclusion and to strive for equity, it is essential to be intentional about how our organizational structures are set. Although the cultural world in which we travel does claim to value diversity, we have had pushback from some, arguing that our intentional structures, our checks and balances, if you will, on which NPN based are Byzantine. However, looking at the diversity of organizations and artists that have gained access to a national landscape through the support of NPN proves that maybe these Byzantine structures are working. So first and foremost, NPN is a network of 71 presenting partners. Some of them are here on these slides, based in rural, suburban, and urban communities across the US. NPN partners range from two-person grassroots operations to really large regional art centers. Some partners are ethnically specific, others discipline-specific, many multicultural and multidiscipline. They support a mix of programs that create, produce, present, and provide training in the arts. NPN provides the structure to move these new ideas, techniques, and art around the country and provides subsidies to pay artists a living wage for the work that they do on the stage and in the community. Over the years, thousands of artists from all corners of the country have created and toured work, emerged, sustained careers, and leveraged other opportunities through the support of NPN and its partners. So what are our structures? First and foremost, NPN states in its mission, vision, and values, which frames the work of the entire organization, that it values diversity. In recent years, NPN has taken this a step further by creating a cultural policy division led by NPN's CEO to advocate for diversity and NPN's other values. 2, location. So many artists, especially in rural or geographically isolated areas, do not have the same opportunities that an artist living in Brooklyn or LA might have. There's a geographical imbalance as to where artistic resources are going. So NPN has built its network on the idea that great art is created in every corner of the United States. In 2000, NPN made the conscious decision to move to a city with a plethora of spirit, culture, and artists, but historically neglected and resource deprived, my hometown of New Orleans. It has allowed NPN to invest in the city by creating opportunities, especially after Hurricane Katrina, to leverage national resources for our local community. Likewise, NPN was able to build the capacity of local organizations and artists through the development of a local network modeled after the national network. So NPN partner diversity. NPN does not curate the artistic work or have a roster of artists. Rather, it curates the organizations that compose the network to ensure that the network is a collection of organizations that reflect the true diversity of the US. So NPN is built on the idea of long-term relationships. Once the partners are brought into the network, they remain a partner for life or until the organization is no longer in alignment with NPN's mission. The leading criteria for selecting new partners is to fill diversity gaps within the network. When analyzing organizational demographics of our partners, we look at various things. So first is the organizational characteristics, budget size of staff, age, geography, location, and then the leadership characteristics of the board and staff members, looking at these criteria listed here. Then we look at the community demographics. So since organizations are a reflection of the people in their community, the audience and the communities they serve, it is imperative to analyze who the organizations are serving. So we do this in 2 ways. We look at the characteristics of the audiences and communities that these organizations work with, and then also we look at the community partners, so organizations locally that they're working with to connect these national artists. So this begins to paint a fuller picture of the true diversity of the organizations. Leadership. So in the same way that we hold our organizations accountable to diversity in leadership, we also look through these lenses at the diversity of the NPN board of directors and staff. So first and foremost, the NPN board of directors is a policy-making board as opposed to a fundraising board, made up of partners, colleagues, and artists. As a policy-making board, first and foremost, we alleviate those financial barriers that may prevent some from participating as board members. In addition to looking at what skills the board members and staff bring to the table, we look at diversity using these demographics that you see here to analyze the board and staff. So the result is an active and engaged and diverse board and staff. Distribution of resources. Being a network rather than a grant-making agency gives us some flexibility so that NPN funds projects through our partners. And so we're very intentional about how we distribute those resources. The processes that we use are peer panels. Panelists are instructed to really take into consideration the diversity of the artistic practices and organizational capacities when judging grants, so that we are funding projects that really have the most impact in those communities as opposed to funding organizations with the savviest grant writers. For our new work grants, we invest more than $400,000 annually into the creation and development of work. While most new work application processes in the US favor artists that know how to work the system, we try to flip that a bit by prioritizing projects based on a broad range of diversity criteria listed here, in order to allow for greater access by artists working in the periphery. The result is that last year, 70% of new work artists identify as people of color, 75% were first-time award recipients, 25% were from the South. Recipients of new work grants not only are diverse, but they also have gone on to receive other major awards, such as Creative Capital Grants, National Dance Project, Guggenheim, USA Artist Grants, among many others. So allies. We know that we can't do this alone, right? NPN strategically forms alliances with national and international colleague organizations to expand the dialogue around cultural policy and extend resources. Examples are NPN's work with the Ford Supporting Diverse Art Spaces cohort, NPN's past collaboration with the Network of Cultural Centers of Color. It really is important to recognize that although sometimes we do feel isolated in this work, we are not, which is why face-to-face convenings like this are still vitally important. So what are the results of all of these structures? The results that we've seen are that the decision makers, leaders, and artists supported by our network are truly diverse in every sense of the word. The result is that the NPN system has become critical to the development of US performing artists, but particularly important to artists emerging on the national level, artists of color, and artists working in community settings. Of course, diversity that NPN has achieved has taken much time, and there's always more work to do. As James Horton said yesterday, diversity is a journey. So now what? So we've got diversity at the table, but unfortunately what we're seeing is that many of our organizations and artists are constantly struggling. Look at the statistics. The majority of arts funding goes to the largest institutions that comprise less than 2% of the arts universe. And only 10% of grant dollars explicitly support underserved communities, communities of color, and lower income populations. As a field, we need to prioritize cultural equity to change these statistics. We need to realize the importance of our community-based cultural organizations and invest in them over time. We need to invest in the infrastructure and development of diverse artists. We need to not be afraid to take risks, to experiment, to fail, and to learn. We need to realize that people are at the center of this work. We need to respect each other's humanity. Thank you.
So we've spent the past few days looking at ways to best improve diversity and equity in the arts. But what if there isn't a solution? Our next speaker is Executive Director of the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and a member of the Board of Directors for the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies. Please welcome a SphinxCon founding partner, John Bracey.
Good morning. You know, I thought at first, speaking early on a Sunday morning, that this is where they put the seditious people. But the two people in front of me, they were like serious. So anyway, good morning. And as is become my tradition, hey, how are you guys doing at the NSA? I know you're listening. Weather's fine. Say hi to the kids. Honestly, I'm really, really honored to be here, especially since I'm certain that I was invited out of courtesy, because I know it wasn't because of my eloquence as a speaker or my ability to put together cool PowerPoints, as you're going to see. My first title for this speech was, Solutions. Seriously, you're asking me? And here's why. I worked really hard and kept throwing things out. in terms of what I was going to say, and really, if you're expecting me or someone else to say, you know, X will solve problem Y, you know, I've got nothing. So here's what you get. You should be curious. You should be creative. You should be conscientious. You should use those critical thinking skills that I know that you learned when you were studying the arts, and the answers to your questions for your organization will come. Of course, that means I have 13 more minutes to kill, so, because that was it. That's kind of what I got. So instead, you're going to get the ramblings of an old guy and a promise for some true wisdom at the end. So there's a serious problem for me. I'm getting toward the end of my career, so I really don't have the time always to be real nice or dink around with you know, sugarcoating things. So I'm going to give you some rules to listen to me. First of all, let me see slide. I'm getting older, and I've been tracking this for some time. So you have to understand this to go any further, all right? I'm not going to jargonize things. I'm not going to try to come up with different ways to make myself sound smarter, because the fact is I'm not that smart, and we'll just leave it at that, okay? And there is always the possibility that I could be wrong. This actually looks like a pie chart, but it's really the tattoo that I'm requiring my staff to have. And we have a symbol for when they do something and I think that they're cute and they were wrong and I was right. So anyway, just so you know, this is my agency. You don't really have to read this. I represent the State Arts Agency for the state of Michigan. We're a granting agency, originally created in around 1966 or so. We've had two iterations, the Michigan Council for Arts, the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. And as you can look, if you look at these numbers and live with these for a while, and if anybody really wants these, I can share them with you later. I think that you understand that state arts agencies across the nation aren't about trying to find the next Leonard Slatkin or Yo-Yo Ma or George Crumb or Romare Bearden or Martha Graham, Picasso, August Wilson, what have you. What we are about is making sure that our citizens have access to your products. And that's from Detour Village way up in the UP to Detroit. And we really expect the arts and cultural organizations to live up to those ideals and the ideals of diversity. So here's what I've noticed in my years about arts organizations. You are incredible. And without you, life would be even uglier than it tends to be, because humans can do horrible things to other humans. You are better than most of the other sectors in this nation at crossing forbidden borders, breaking down unbreakable barriers. You promote diversity through programming, etc. But you aren't necessarily the most diverse in terms of your boards or employees. You have to fix that. And you're also willing to jump on the bandwagon if you think it'll mean validation. We all want to be loved. Credibility, stability, or in other words, money. That means if some really smart person offers up some really smart book that says they have a solution for you, you're first in line to buy it. So solutions. Honestly, for me, solutions, the word sounds like snake oil. And I'm sure which is a lovely oil in and of itself. I know it probably lubes things all up. But really it's the claims that the snake oil salesmen make that I think should make you grab your wallet and run. Really, someone please tell me where the wisdom lies in accepting carte blanche what someone outside your community tells you about what your community needs, I suppose based on their taste, even if it's outside your mission. And that's not to say that you can't glean something of use out of anything that's said to you. And it's wonderful that people can share their solutions, but remember that it's their solutions. And I can tell you there's a really good chance that if you buy into someone's solution whole hog, you're on the road to some eventual trouble as an organization, especially if that solution lies outside your mission and you haven't done anything to change that as an organization. Can't really see very well, but I'm going to guess that not everybody's really buying this. So here are some tidbits of what I'm going to say are anti-wisdom that I've actually heard from various jargon peddlers in my career. And I'm going to tell you one story really quick. First, someone actually said there are too many nonprofits. You know, I don't really think that that's anyone's business who's in a, 80% of wisdom, honestly, is staying out of other people's business. The other 20%, I can't really fathom. I don't have the intellectual capacity to deal with that other 20%. But what do you suppose would happen to a policymaker in Washington or otherwise who said there are too many small businesses? Yeah, I don't think they would buck that incumbency trend, wouldn't they? They wouldn't be voted back in. Economic impact will save us. You know, it's a good thing. It's a tool. You have it. You do it. Work with it. It's not going to save you. You're going to save you. Creating new places will save us. No, it's the same thing. You've been doing this for years. You're creating places. You do your work to make sure that the citizens in your community, the 1 square mile of your universe, is the best that it possibly can be. You know, audiences are too old. Newsflash, every one of you are going to get older. And my guess is that your taste is going to change and that you're still going to be part of an audience, and somewhere 25 years from now somebody's going to look at you guys that are out there that are 20 years old going, oh my God, listen to this old guy. They're going to think that you're too old too. The one that got me though is classical music is dead. And you know, XYZ, something is always dead, but classical music is dead. I actually sat down with a young person not too long ago, and he was so sincere and passionate that, and I don't really believe that there's any wisdom in crushing someone's passion, even if I thought it was misguided. Honestly, to myself while he was talking, I kept saying, I should kick his ass. He said, who wants to go, I'm serious, this is a quote, he said, who wants to go listen to Baroque music or bother with dead white guy composers and musicians playing 200-year-old music that have the same instruments that they used 200 years ago? Everyone knows classical music is dead. So the big part of my PowerPoint is young people who should just quit because everybody knows classical music are dead. This person should just quit. These people should just quit. Classical music is dead. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to rant too much. So let me tell you what I believe about a diversity solution. Just like any other solutions, we all want a solution, and we want it now. And although sometimes I really do believe that we want it handed to us just so that we can focus on our real work. And I really wish I could hand it to you. You know, I wished I had the words. It's probably my biggest failure is not being able to say the right things at the right time that would solve everybody's issues. So here, and please, forgive me if I offend you. Here are my observations about our field and diversity as it stands right now. We've allowed, or you have allowed, salesmen of the next miracle solution to diminish the issue of diversity. We've allowed them to jam it into February, jam it in from September 15th to October 15th or March, what have you. Those are all like special months. And by doing that, we've allowed them to impose a calendar that actually controls your programming instead of your own mission controlling your programming. You know, there's something inherently wrong with that. And especially if that salesman is a funder. You know, you end up doing the dance of 1,000 hoops to get the money that they're offered, if it fits your mission or not. And perhaps that's the most dangerous thing that an arts organization can do, is let that mission creep, and I know you've heard that. So I'm going to say that if we're really going to make progress on this issue, that we have to stop making it a lowercase issue. And we have to stop being a lowercase culture, because we're going to stay there if we don't expand. We're going to fight the same battle over and over with very little or very slow success. I think that you should become, or we should become, maybe a little more Aristotelian. You know, think in more of an absolute sense. Think of sort of what the perfect form of diversity would be. You know, big D diversity, broad-minded, open, not narrow, not calendar specific or ethnicity specific, gender or creed. We have to challenge everything. Your hiring practices, your board makeup, the art that you provide, everything. And this just isn't a function of your operation. I truly believe that this is your responsibility. You know, I actually had a governor say one time that the arts are the stuff that feed the soul. They feed the human soul, and they integrate communities around our state. And even though it was disingenuous when she said it, your job is at least in part to feed the human soul. And think about that. That's not some human souls, that's all of them. That's a huge responsibility that you have for our species. And I believe that the law is also on your side. The UNESCO Charter, and I think it's Article 26 or something, pretty clearly states that access to arts and culture is a human right. I think that establishes the responsibilities of government to assist you in providing that access, which are the grants we give. But we're dropping the ball in terms of the level of that support. You know, arts thrive on risk, and you heard the previous speaker say that. That means you are going to fail, and God knows I feel like a failure most days. You know, it doesn't stop me from getting up in the morning and going to work and banging my heart on the wall the next day too, and I've been doing it for a number of years. So, although I don't think that there's a solution, you know, that's outside of you, yourself, and what you can do for your organization, and the policies that you can set for your organization and your community, I do believe that there's a conclusion. A really good friend of mine, Ken Fisher, said this to me the very first time, and that is, everybody in, nobody out. And you have to do that yourself. In your community, make your 1 square mile of the universe the best place to be. The Justice League from LA or DC or New York isn't going to come in and fix it for you. You know, one of my favorite quotes is by Emerson. He said, to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Now I know, and I can see by counting here, I have 38 seconds, so I promise you some true wisdom. And if she knew I was doing this, she would kill me. Honestly, I may not go. True wisdom. This is my granddaughter. I love that first quote. How wise is that? I wish Bob Ross had been president. There would have been no wars, only art competitions where everyone would win. The best food to eat after an intense workout, bacon. And Ringo is underrated. Listen, thanks for putting up with me.
So that wraps up our first session for today. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Of course, lights? Sorry? Oh. I was like, bingo, what's happening? There's coffee next door, water. Take this time to do a little more networking, and don't forget to fill out your comment cards so next year's SphinxCon can be shaped to your needs. So we'll see you back here in just about 10 minutes.